Introduction. Henri Camus, Albert Camus (1913–1960), is one of the prominent names on the literary scene. France in the decades between and after the Second World War. Camus' work, novels, plays, short stories, essays and essays, sparking heated debates in France and many countries around the world. Camus was awarded the 1957 Nobel Prize for Literature for his literary work, which provided shed light on the problems posed to the human conscience of our time. Among his works, the novel The Plague, La Peste, is highly appreciated. More than that, the content of the work is the plague and the silent, extremely arduous fight to quell it. Epidemic, saving the life of the city of Oran on the coast of Algeria. The city is living peacefully when suddenly dead rats everywhere. Then came one person, two people, dozens, hundreds of people died. Oran turned into a terrible hell, writhing in danger of perishing like any other. Former cities in Europe, Asia, and Africa. In the midst of that tragic death atmosphere and despite the danger of infection, drive. The protagonist and the center of the entire work, with colleagues and friends, jump into the game. Fight to save the people of the city. According to him, the only way is to get involved and take up the dance. Gas to fight, prevent, because if you're not crazy, you'll be blind, if you're not blind, you'll be cowardly. Surrender to the plague. His attitude was clear. He affirmed that when there is a sick person, the most important thing is to cure them. No matter where my strength is, I will protect them there. And it was while his wife was sick while going away for nursing, and later died, that he couldn't. He organized the rescue of the plague-stricken and himself, with his own two hands. Performed surgery on many patients. To save their lives, he spared no effort, happiness and even destiny. Rieu's words and deeds persuade and win many others. Of these, it is more remarkable. Both the journalist Rambi and the priest Panelu. Rambi arrives in Oran on a mission to investigate the life of Arab for a major newspaper in Paris. So I've been stuck since the order to close the city because plague. I do all the campaigns to get out of the city, back to my lover who is day and night. Expect. But when someone arranged for him to leave, he volunteered to stay and directly participate in the treatment of the sick, returning to loved ones as a legitimate happiness, but he refused, for, as he said to Rieu, it is shameful to enjoy happiness alone. Even more special is the case of Panelu. In the midst of a raging epidemic, spreading death and suffering, then Panelu instructs the sheep to accept punishment and thunder with confidence. Anger, suddenly of God to quickly return to God. But Rieu's example of self-sacrifice and devotion. Of Rambert and of others who inspired him, especially after he witnessed his tragic death. Wound of a child with bubonic plague. During a second prayer meeting, speaking to the faithful, Mr. Use the pronoun we instead of the previous children and fist punch hard in the face. Table, fervently calling, brothers, we must be the ones who stay. Mr. himself also volunteered to join the rescue team, eventually contracting the disease and dying. Along with Ryu, prominent in the work is the image of Taru, an intellectual who hates society, hates bourgeois violence with death sentences 1,000 times accursed. The son of a vice president. Reason, who determined to guide his son to follow his career, Taru left home and said goodbye to velvet life. The Silk of a noble family died after hearing his father's cruel accusations and testifying. Court sentenced the defendant to death. He wandered in many countries, participated in many wars. Before the plague raged, he volunteered to organize medical teams, and with Rio, he rushed into action. Fight one-to-one with disease germs. My purpose, my mind is to live for people, for people. He describes the society he lives in as a society, based on sentencing to death. And fight against that society, he fights against murder. Passion is an iconic novel. Through character image, behavior and especially their thoughts and language, readers can easily feel the depth of the work and its intentions. Pretending to negate war and violence, affirming the will to fight against life-threatening calamities. Human. The author builds a series of positive characters, although the path is different, but in the end, they all voluntarily entered the battle against the plague, bringing a peaceful life. For people, return peace to society. While some people thought it was useless to do anything, just kneeling and begging God, Rio, Taru and his friends all insist on fighting one way or another, not kneeling. The whole point is to try to prevent people from dying and being separated forever. To do so, only. The only way is to fight the plague. The vigilance emanating from the work is also meaningful. In the midst of joyful laughter, bustling of those who survived the epidemic, Dr. Ryu still thought that the cheering people did not know that the virus bubonic plague never dies and disappears completely. It can lie still for decades in furniture, clothes, pants, blankets. It waits patiently in the rooms, in the basements, in the shacks, and one day, to inflict calamity and teach them a lesson, the plague may awaken its swarm of rats. Get up and make them run to die in a certain city living in happiness and prosperity. Honor. The author borrows the story of Dr. Ryu to show his goodwill to the victims of the epidemic. Gang, to record at least one trace of injustice and violence, and to tell the lesson to be learned between. At the time of calamity, there is more to be admired among men than there is to despise. It is clear that the central character of the work, Dr. Ryu, represents people who are resistant. War, men of action. Ryu has the direction of the years of anti-fascist resistance war. Germany, in which Abe Camus himself was actively involved. And the author has succeeded in building the kernel. This object to express the ideological theme of the work, fighting crime, fighting terrorism, fighting